Okay, so we are now recording. So I'll tell you a bit about us. I'm Kelly Self and I'm the project coordinator at HEP, which is the shortened version of Higher Education Progression Partnership. And we offer impartial advice and guidance about higher education. We are funded by both universities in Sheffield, so Sheffield Hallam and the University of Sheffield. And we work across Sheffield City region, which covers Barnsley, Doncaster, Rotherham, Sheffield, Bassetlaw and North East Derbyshire. And we're about encouraging children, young people and adults as well to consider higher education. And as part of my role as a project coordinator, I look after the disabled students, which is what we're here to talk about today. So we have a website called our HEP Hub, and on there's lots and lots of different information and resources about higher education, but there is a specific page on there for disabled learners that's got resources, case studies, video clips, just to help support disabled students navigate the higher education, further education. So today what we're going to cover is quite a lot within an hour: what disabled student allowance is, what forms you'll need to complete and how you do that, then the support provided for disabled students at a higher education, further education institution, along with a Q&A session with our student ambassadors. So we've got that today. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass you over to Jackie, who is going to talk about DSA.
Okay,
Jackie?
see if I can get myself up. Screen
from the beginning.
From the beginning. Whoops, sorry.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Jackie Reaney. I'm the Higher Education Disability Advisor at Barnsley College. To all intents and purposes, whichever of us is speaking to you today, it doesn't matter, because the system is the same across all universities and all higher education institutions. The Disabled Students Allowance is a process that we all access in exactly the same way. So if you start the process with any one of us, it doesn't matter whether you're going to Cambridge University or Salford or Bradford, it's going to be exactly the same process. So, you know, don't feel you have to contact a host university that is miles away. You can start it with your local university in order to get things in place. So what is Disabled Students Allowance? It's an academic budget issued by the UK government to cover support, technology and one-to-one support that you might need, that disabled learners might need when they're studying on the degree course or in university. It was set up in 1991, 30 years ago. Can't believe it, 30 years ago. It's changed very little since then. It's delivered and administered by each of the funding bodies. So that is Student Finance England, Student Finance Wales, Student Finance Northern Ireland and the Scottish agencies. And the budget under each looks almost the same. It's not money, and this is what I think causes some of the confusion. I think personally people confuse DSA with something like Disability Living Allowance. I think people think it's a benefit, and you know, why would you know otherwise unless anybody's explained it all. One of the saddest things to me is when a student arrives in my office towards the end of the year or even towards the end of their course and said, and if they say, I didn't know anything about this, I've never heard of it. This would have made all the difference to me. That's really sad. So our mission today is to make sure that more people know about it, more people know what it is and what it isn't. So it's not money, it's a mixture of technical support and practical support, amounting to a total of a budget of up to £25,000 per student. It's not means tested. So it doesn't matter what your family income is. There isn't a decision about who gets what based on your income. It's not a benefit, as I've said. So it won't therefore compromise any other benefits that the family are receiving. It's not counted as income. It's not a loan. It's not paybackable. You don't have to repay it at the end as you would do a government student loan. It is stuff. It's a mixture of technical and practical support. And the idea is it provides our students who have a disability, a health issue, or dyslexia, or anything that interferes with the study. It provides them with a safety net that is almost like a sort of personalised safety net. So any student can apply for it who has a diagnosis of anything that might interfere with how they study. So whether that's a long-term health issue, ME or Crohn's or a bad back, whether it's continuous or just persistent or just occasional. If it's something like rheumatism that only affects you in the winter, then you can apply for DSA. If it's anxieties or mental health issues that affect you perhaps in spaces where there are a lot of people around, or perhaps in enclosed spaces, if you know that you have a diagnosis of something that interferes with your energies, your concentration, where you study, when you study, how effectively you study, then you have an option of applying for this Disabled Students Allowance. And also, interestingly, it's not, there isn't a kind of grading around which disabilities might cost more than any other. So wheelchair users wouldn't necessarily get more than a student with Asperger's. There is no judgment about which disability is more significant in terms of the impact on HE. So as long as you have any disability and we can evidence that, then we can apply for DSA funding. Health issues, mental health issues, dyslexia is included as well. The fund is available for full-time and part-time students. If you're part-time, you have to be doing at least 25% of the full-time equivalent. So in other words, perhaps if the full-time course is a year and you're studying it part-time for 2 years, then you can still apply for Disabled Students Allowance. The amounts are still there. Courses covered are level 4 and upwards at higher education level. So your HNCs, your HNDs, your foundation degrees, your degrees, and your postgraduate periods of study. Basically, if you are, if your course, the course you're applying to is one that includes the offer of a government student loan, then you're entitled to apply for DSA. It doesn't mean you have to take out a loan, but if it's a course that attracts and is attached to that offer of a government student loan, then there is automatically the option of Disabled Students Allowance. What evidence is needed? Well, we have to remember we're satisfying SFE or any of the other funding bodies. When I say SFE, it means any of the other funding bodies as well, they're included. When you come to university, we like to feel that we're offering an inclusive environment anyway, that we're shaping your studies around you, and that we don't need to look at a label of a disability. We're working towards being as inclusive as we can. But Student Finance England, because they're offering a substantial budget here, because they're looking at £25,000 worth of stuff per student, they do require some evidence. Confirming a disability, a health issue. So they offer a form which you can take along to your doctors. We can download it for you, or it's on the web. It's Student Finance's own form, and they're happy for a doctor to fill in that form. It's stamped by the surgery, and that would confirm an ongoing health issue. You might already have letters from consultants and your GP or NHS specialists. And of course, in many cases, those evidence your disability or your health issue. But the worry for me would always be that you send something in that isn't acceptable, and that you perhaps waste maybe a month before it's rejected and then go back again. I would always say check out what you've got with a disability advisor or a disability team to see whether we think it would be appropriate and would get through the evidence that SFE require. They need a clear diagnosis. As I said, it's not just the physical disabilities, but it would cover any unseen health issues, diabetes, mental health, Asperger's, anything that interferes with how you might choose to study or need to study in order to work effectively. I know that many students have an EHCP or SEN report done through college or school. We like those. We welcome them because obviously we're going to shape your studies around your experience so far of your health issue or disability. Student Finance England will accept an EHCP only as evidence of Asperger's or ASD. Other than that, they want us to provide medical evidence or psychologist evidence from a clinician or a specialist. I don't know why, and I know that a lot of people would want the HCP to be an acceptable piece of evidence, but it's not. So at the minute, use that for Asperger's or for autistic spectrum, but don't present it for dyslexia or for a health issue. Dyslexia, it can only be evidenced by a full diagnostic report by an educational psychologist accredited. A full diagnostic report is more than just an access report. So many students will have had an access report done for exams about their dyslexia, and it gives them extra time. It might give them a scribe or a reader in exams. Those reports don't count as a full diagnostic report. And again, SFE have taken the decision that they won't accept anything but a full diagnostic report. The drawback, or maybe perhaps what puts people off going down the route of getting a full report, might be that they cost about £300. We can put you in touch with the agencies who would do those reports, and many universities will reimburse you the cost of that. Keep a receipt if you pay over the summer for a full diagnostic report. It's sad that it does cost that much, but you know, I would like to think that we can get, in most cases, we get that money back for the student. But it gets you through to getting your DSA funding, and that is going to last you for the length of your course. So it's money well spent, is what I'm saying. So the DSA, this wonderful fund, will provide you with equipment and one-to-one support, other things as well, but equipment might be assistive software, so it might be dyslexia programs. It might be something like a dictating package, so that, you know, if my verbal skills are my strong point, then when I dictate, my computer will type my assignments. And that's also better for someone who can't spend long at the keyboard or can't spend long at the monitor, because of comfort and because of needing breaks from looking at a bright screen. So if for any reason typing isn't your thing, and it's to do with a health issue or a disability, then we would look at providing you with maybe something that you can dictate and the computer types it down. There are recording devices so that you could download onto your computer the whole lecture, and there is a piece of software which converts that into your lecture notes. So we look at what you might need to get the best out of a lecture experience. For some students, it might be a chair, an ergonomic workstation, a chair with a comfortable back if you've got a bad back, or if your posture really needs to be addressed. Footrests, keyboards, electronic desks for wheelchair users so that you can raise or lower the desk. When we talk about equipment, it is stuff that is for you to have at home. It's not your university equipment. We'll deal with that as well. We'll make sure you have appropriate furniture and appropriate equipment in the university, but the DSA provides you with your own workstation, your own technology for use in your study bedroom, so that where you are working as your base, there you can have a comfortable environment around you. So everything that is got for you is yours to keep. The second part of the funding, so there's £25,000, and it's to be split between equipment and between one-to-one people support. So that might be a dyslexia tutor, and I know a lot of people will be used to having a dyslexia tutor to work with through school or through college. When you're in your university, that has to be paid for through the DSA funding. You might need a mentor support. You might need to meet somebody once a week because of anxieties. Some students meet somebody every day as mentor support to keep the lid on stress and anxiety and panic. We work out with you whether you're going to need somebody once a week or once a fortnight, or even just at key points when you feel really stressed. So there is to be a split between people support and technology support. If you're deaf and you use British Sign Language, then an interpreter actually costs 35 to 40 pounds an hour. And for some lectures, you would need 2 interpreters to be present. Therefore, for some students, a lot of the funding would go on their one-to-one support if you're a BSL user, and therefore less would be available for the technical equipment. But that split, that judgment is to be worked out so that you feel you've got a comfortable layer of support, whether it be one-to-one, whether it be technology, and so that it sort of wraps around you, it fits how you work, it gives you the confidence, and it gives you the assurances that your course is going to be delivered and accessible by you. For some students, reimbursement of printer costs is going to be a good option for the fund, because if you do a lot of printing, because you need everything printed on coloured paper, if you go through a lot of printer cartridges, then you're offered a reimbursement. If it matches the evidence around your dyslexia, you're offered a reimbursement for all the extra printing you're doing. So that will be part of the DSA. Again, so for some students, taxi costs are essential. It might be every day. Some students might need a taxi in from their accommodation or from home every day, and that will be also covered by the DSA. And for other students, it might just be a couple of times a week, or it might just be when you've had a heavy day and you need a taxi home because of a disability-related issue. So there is a judgment to be made in each area of how best to spend that £25,000. And the £25,000 comes, £25,000 is for the whole of the 3 years. You don't have to spend it all at once. It doesn't all come at the beginning. You might find in year 2, you need a bit more of this, or you need to reduce your dyslexia sessions, or you need to increase your mentor support. So it can be adjusted as you go through the course. But the £25,000 is the total. So we look towards going up to the maximum and no further as far as possible. I think with the taxi travel, they're looking at some additional adjustment being available too. Who decides what you get? Well, it would be nice if we could sit down and write out our shopping list and say, oh yes, that would be good, that would work for you. But nothing's as straightforward as that. Student Finance England require students to have a technical assessment, needs assessment, at a needs assessment centre. Most universities have an assessment centre attached or within the local area. So there is Sheffield Regional Access Centre. In Barnsley, we've got a local assessment centre. You'll be able to find one locally right across the country. You don't have to have the assessment centre attached to your host university. So in other words, if you're going to Cambridge, you don't have to go over to Cambridge and have your needs assessment. You can have it at the local centre, and their recommendations will be in respect of what you would need at Cambridge or at Manchester or at Salford or at Leeds or at Sheffield. So you get an appointment at the assessment centre. The assessor shows you technology, far more than we can tell you about. We know bits of what there is, which is why we can sort of raise a flag for some aspects of the technology, but they will demonstrate the things to you. They'll demonstrate all the software, they'll demonstrate bits of hardware, and you get to make decisions about what would work well for you and what you might never use at all. There's no point in having something if you feel that I'm never going to use that. So collaboratively, the assessor spends some time working out the shopping list of what you will need and why you need it. Obviously, they've got to justify why you need it. Then they put together their report, and that goes off to Student Finance England for approval and then for purchase. It would be nice if we could sort of shortcut and have the assessment done at any time. But again, there are restrictions around that. You can't have your assessment until your evidence has gone in to Student Finance England on the appropriate form, and until they've sent back confirmation that they've accepted your evidence. And the letter back or the email to you will say, we've accepted your evidence and we now authorise you to attend an assessment centre. So they won't see you without that letter. So when should you apply? Now, the best thing is to apply as soon as possible, as soon as the application forms, and they're called the DSA1, as soon as that's out. And actually it came out on Friday. As you see from this slide, when I checked last week, it hadn't come out. It was due out, and I checked this morning, and they came out on Friday. So the DSA ones are available. I think the most important thing is to be collecting your evidence to start with, and to check out that the evidence is what we feel would get through the system. So, you know, I wouldn't slap in what evidence you've got without checking that it might get through, because it would be a shame for it to be knocked back and for you to waste that time in between. If you switch to another university, or if your choice changes over the summer, that doesn't matter. If you're going to attend Manchester and then suddenly you're attending Sheffield instead, the wording on the assessment is just adjusted to reflect your new university choice, and it goes into SFE. Even if you're a year in, if you're year in to a course at Sheffield or a course at Barnsley, and then you move on to study at Sheffield, the fund goes with you, because remember, it's your stuff. It goes where you want it to be. And if you've spent, I don't know, maybe £20,000, the final 5,000 will be left to spend wherever you end up for your new university. Processes can be slow, allow 2 months at least. That's not us being slow, that's Student Finance England, because of the amount of applications they're dealing with. So they're processing thousands of applications for this fund. They're processing, and it's just a matter of getting through them. Initially, when it's at its worst, the email will bounce back that we will be looking at yours within 4 weeks. So right at the start of term, if you get an email back, we're looking at this within 4 weeks, you wish you'd done it over the summer. Similarly, if they're looking at it in 4 weeks, or if they've looked at it in 4 weeks down the line and then they say, sorry, your evidence isn't sound, it's not what we would accept, then we have to go back, get some more evidence, send it back in, and then it's another 4 weeks in the queue. So processes can be slow just because of their queuing. Allow 2 months. That's, you know, that I think would be the maximum. I bumped into a student a few months ago who went from us to Sheffield, and I'd helped her put together her application over the summer, and she said when she got to Sheffield she was so glad she'd done it early, because there were others who hadn't started it, and further down the line they were just getting their equipment by Christmas. So we can't speed up SFE's queues. We can only say do it as soon as possible. The forms are available now, and Justine's going to talk you through those forms. But more importantly, right at the front end of it, is make sure your evidence is pretty sound and is what we have every expectation of being acceptable, because otherwise you're causing yourself more of a delay. I think I've covered everything. I'm sorry I went at breakneck speed. I realised I didn't allow myself enough time. I'm going to hand over to Justine, because she's going to talk you through those very forms. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, Justine, next up from Sheffield Hallam.
Yeah, I'll share when Jackie stops sharing.
Stop sharing.
We okay? Can we see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So my name's Justine and I'm the Transition Officer at Sheffield Hallam University, and we're just going to go through a little bit about how to apply for Disabled Student Allowance, the process of applying, and a little bit about the study needs assessment towards the end. If we can clock on. So mostly of what I'm going to talk about is linked to Student Finance England, because I think the majority of people will be applying through Student Finance England. If you're not, sort of get a question to one of us and we can sort of explain how to do it differently. But it will still be a form that you have to fill in and send off with your medical evidence or your disability evidence. So, but I am sort of talking Student Finance England in the majority of this first bit of the presentation. So there's a couple of ways you can apply for DSA through Student Finance England. You can download a paper application, and if you just search for DSA application form, it'll bring it up, and it'll be a .gov website. And you can fill that in on paper and you can send it off to Student Finance England. If you are studying part-time or at postgraduate level, then you will need to download a paper form because at the minute they're not doing online applications for those courses. But if you're a full-time undergraduate student and you're applying for your core finance through Student Finance England, then the easiest and best way to apply is when you do on your finance portal that you get for student finance. So when you start your application for either your fees for your course fees or your finance for your living costs, then it will ask you if you want to apply for DSA. So if at this stage you say yes, I want to apply, then it's available on that page for you to fill in the application. The advantage of doing it online is it'll keep an update of where you are in the process. So if you've forgotten which part you are, doing it online, it will tell you on that SFE portal. If you've already applied for your finance, if you've been super organised and got your application in since Friday, then don't worry, you can still go back and apply for DSA. The application will either be under your to-do list on your student finance page. If it's not there, then you'll just need to find the button that says change of circumstances, and there it'll be for you to apply for your DSA through there. So I'm going to just quickly run through sort of what the online system looks like. This is a bit old, but it's from the funding people, and they've told me that it's not changed much. So it is a bit old, so some of the screens might be slightly different, but hopefully not too different. So the first sort of question will be, have you got any of these disabilities? And it will split them up into different sections, and just tick yes to say yes, I have one of these disabilities, whatever the disability is. So let's click the next page, and then it will ask you if you want to apply for disabled student allowance. Sorry, there's a little bit of a description of what DSA is, but hopefully you'll kind of got a bit of an idea after this event anyway. So yes, I want to apply for DSA. And then this is what sort of your front page of your student finance account will look like. So on your to-do list, in this case, they need their passport sent in and they need to apply for disabled student allowance. So click on the green button, start your application. Then it explains a little bit about the Disability Act, which is where the Equality Act, which is what they use to class someone as having a disability at university. So then you need to tick the box that most closely matches your disability. So for example, if you've got dyslexia, then it would be specific to learning difficulties. So the one that sort of most closely matches. If you don't feel that your disability matches any of those, then you can tick other, and you can tick more than one box if you've got multiple disabilities that you can evidence. Just keep in mind that all the disabilities that you're applying for DSA for, you need some sort of disability evidence. So then the next page is really important. and it's the consent to share, and there's two different consents to share. There's the first consent, which is that you consent to share with the disability service at your university, and you don't have to agree to that, but it makes it a lot easier if you do. If you've got an issue and you're talking to people at your university about your issue, they can ring Student Finance England up, and if you've consented to share, we can sort of ask the questions for you. If you say no, then we can't get in touch with Student Finance England. They won't tell us anything. And the next bit is that you consent to share with a study needs assessment, and if you don't agree to that, then they won't go on with the application, because you've got to have that study needs assessment. So I would always recommend you say agree for the university, because it makes it easier if you've got any issues, and without saying I agree to the needs assessor, you won't be able to access DSA. The next page is if you want to tell any more about your disability. So it's up to you. If you kind of know what you want to say and how it might affect your studies, then you can fill that box in. If not, just say no, it won't affect your application. It doesn't matter. And often you don't know how it's going to affect your studies at this point, because you don't know kind of what studying at university is like. And then there's a part about emailing your evidence, so that's your disability evidence and the email address, and you can send that off. If you've not got your evidence, still fill in the form, but just remember to send your evidence off. They will keep reminding you, but do remember to send your medical evidence off, because they won't. The application won't be complete until you've done that. And then tick to say that you've read the terms and conditions and that you've agreed to them. So that's what it looks like on the Student Finance England pages. Like I've said, it might be slightly different because that is from 2017-18, so they might have juggled some pages around, but the kind of the routine should be similar. Right, I'm really not doing very good at clicking today. And once you've applied for your disability, you'll receive a letter telling you that you can book a study needs assessment, and hopefully this works. Can you see the letter from Student Finance? Yeah. So this is what the letter will look like once you've applied and Student Finance have agreed that the evidence is right and that you can go for a needs assessment, and it will tell you what your needs assessment is for. So what evidence, if you send an application off saying that you've got dyslexia and a medical issue, for example, but you've only sent medical evidence for your medical condition, not for your dyslexia, then your study needs assessment will only be for that part of that. So you would then need to get your psychological assessment done for your dyslexia and send that off. But until they've got that evidence, they won't do this one. So in this case, someone sent evidence off for autistic spectrum disorder and specific learning difficulties, and that's what their study needs assessment will look at. So once you've got that letter, you can book a study needs assessment, and it takes you to a .gov site, which hopefully will spring into action. That's not done it because it's on that page. There we go. And so all you do is put your postcode in and then click find, and it will bring up a list of study needs assessments that are nearest to you. So I've just got a little video clip that we've made at Sheffield Hallam. We are at Sheffield Hallam, we have the Sheffield Regional Assessment Centre, and this is just a clip made by them to talk through kind of what a study needs assessment is, and the process really. So I'll just play the clip. It's only a couple of minutes.
There's no sound, Justine.
Oh, hang on, let me have a look. I think it's because I've not shared my sound into it. Let's see. Can't extend my thing. Oh, why is it not going big? Sorry about this. Can't get me. Oh, it's because I'm sharing my screen into it.
Yeah. Might be when you shared it
Yeah,
from the start, you might have had to unshare it and reshare the whole presentation with it.
Let's just see if I can. Has that got rid of the screen now?
Yeah.
Sorry about this. Shall we just skip that, because I don't want to waste time sort of trying to see how it works. But and Jackie's
it'll be on the link anyway when we send out the video clip.
Yeah, I can. And we could put it on the HEP hub as well if we
definitely.
need to. I mean, Jackie's done a really has already sort of talked through kind of what the needs assessment does and what it's about as well. So it's an informal chat with an assessor to talk about what support you want to have when you're at university. The assessors are really experienced and know what lots of students want, and so they'll put that together with the course that you're on and how you sort of manage your additional needs and things like that, and they'll look at the equipment, non-medical helper, travel costs, and extra and all the other stuff like printing costs and things. But I'll make sure that that's available, that video.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Oh, that's it. So once you've had your needs assessment, they'll write up the assessment, send it back to Student Finance England, and they will then approve what the needs assessor has recommended. And then they'll send you out a letter. And this is often the point where students stop. They'll do all the applying, they'll find the medical evidence, they'll have the needs assessment, and then they don't do the end bit, and it's the end bit that sort of gets you your actual support. So hopefully this will open. So this is a letter that comes once you've had your needs assessment and Student Finance England have approved what's been recommended, and it's broken down into those areas. So the first one is your equipment. So it will list your equipment, it will tell you the supplier, so who's providing the equipment, and then it will tell you how to arrange that equipment. And usually it's a call or an email to the supplier, and then they will need to see a copy of this letter. So if you do apply online, then this letter will be online as well as a physical letter. So that's another reason why it's good, because it's already online for you to email to the different places. So your equipment will be there. Scroll further down or look further down the letter, you know, medical helper support. So in this case, they've been recommended assistive technology training and specialist study skills. The supplier and how to contact the supplier is on there. If you had a taxi allowance, that would be there. This letter doesn't, but the general allowance as well. So how the cost that you've got, in this case, ink and paper, and they've got up to £90 to spend per year on that. So and then at the end it sort of breaks down the costs. Again, these are old letters, so the costs aren't quite right. You can see what they used to be, how much you used to be able to get, but that's broken down at the end of the letter. And then a little bit about if you want to sort of upgrade your equipment and things like that. So it's really important that this letter's kind of, that you look at it and that you act on this letter, because the amount of students that have this letter and then don't act on it, I think they just get, the process is so long and so faffy that I think they kind of lose the will and don't bother finishing it. But it is a hard process. It's not hard, it's just faffy. and a lot of students don't get through it, but the evidence is that students with DSA do as well as students without disabilities at university, so it's well worth applying and getting that support in place. If you need any support, contact either of any of our universities, college or Barnsley College, or get in touch with a needs assessment, Sheffield Regional Assessment Centre. You can give them a call. They'll talk you through the form, talk you through the needs assessment if you like, and any assessment centre, I would presume, would do the same. So if you're stuck, ask. There are people out there that you can ask, but it's not a hard process. It's just a bit long and a bit tedious, but very much worth doing.
Lovely, thank you, Justine. So we're now going to hand over to Alison, who's going to talk about support. Are you there, Alison? Oh, yeah, she's there.
Oh, sorry, I'm chatting away. I realised I was still on mute. Still do it after all this time. Right, okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, I can see all of the screens down the side, not from the first slide, not as a main slide. From the beginning. Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so you can see that fine now.
No.
Oh,
Still showing it down the side. Don't worry, it's fine.
I don't know why it's doing that. Just a second, sorry. It's not giving me the option to share just the presentation.
Okay, is it started? Have you got the presentation open on started on the first slide from the beginning when you've got it on your screen? Just do it from there, that's fine, it doesn't matter.
Okay, right, I'm going to keep it brief anyway because we don't have much time left. So I just, my section is really just to kind of confirm that there are two routes to support at university. So although this information session today is primarily about DSA, we also wanted to explain that this isn't all of the support that's available at university. So there are two routes to support. So you've got the support that is put in place through DSA, and then you've got support that the university can put in place. So support can also be organised and put in place by the university, and that would be discussed and agreed with the disability service at the university that you're going to. So you would have a discussion with the disability advisor to work out what support the advisor would then need to action at university.
It's not moved on, Alison, to the next slide.
Oh, I don't know why.
Don't panic.
Sorry, I don't, yeah. I think it's because
yeah, if you just keep, when you log into the PowerPoint, have you started from the beginning and then shared your screen? No.
Yeah. I can try it again. I'm just conscious that I'm going to be taking up most of my time.
Let me just see if I've got your presentation. Maybe I could share it for you. Bear with me. Presentations. Let me see if I can share it for you. If you want to carry on talking, and then I'll try and see if I can share it.
Okay. Right, okay, so the university support that's available, just to say that there might be some variations in the type of support that's available across different universities. So that's why it's important that you speak with the disability service at the university to ensure that the support that you need is going to be in place with the university. In terms of type of support, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. The type of support that the university can put in place would very much depend upon your individual need. And the type of support that is available within uni is things like being able to refer students for diagnostic assessments, which is what Jackie mentioned recently. So being able to refer you for an assessment for specific learning difficulty, Some universities can also do that for autism spectrum diagnostic assessments as well. It's the university that puts in place your exam support. So for a lot of students, this is the most important type of support, and it's where we make changes to the exam situation. So that might be making sure that you've got extra time in your exams, for example, or the use of a PC or rest periods. So if that's the support that you're going to need at university, then you need to have that discussion with the disability service. The university would also be able to put in place a learning support plan. So this is the way in which the disability service communicates with your academic department to make recommendations for how the department should support you at university. So for example, we might request that presentations for lectures are made available to you in advance of the teaching session so that you can, for example, print them off, take them to the lecture and then make some notes when you're in the lecture so that there are fewer notes that you need to make. Lots of universities now record their lectures and make the lecture recordings available so that you can listen again and kind of fill in some of your notes if you've missed any sections, or if there's anything that you want to listen to again, just to confirm your understanding. Other types of university support include things like workload management. Now, there are certain types of support workers, which have already been discussed in terms of DSA support. So the dyslexia study skills, tuition and mentor support, for example. Now that is provided through DSA, but some universities are able to put that support in place before your DSA is approved. So hopefully you'll apply for DSA as soon as possible and you'll arrive at university with your DSA in place and everything approved. But if there was a delay to your DSA, then there might still be the opportunity for you to still be able to access the mentor support and the study skill support when you first arrive at university. So it's important that if that support is going to be important to you, then have that discussion with the disability service to find out if it's going to be available straight away. Just to say as well that not all of the support worker support that a student might need is funded through DSA. So there are certain types of support worker support which the university would fund. So for example, this includes certain types of note takers. Some students have orientation support, so that's somebody that they can meet with when they first arrive at university to show them around. Library support assistant, so that's somebody to support students to access and use the library. And then some students have exam support workers, so for example, a reader or a scribe. So that support would be funded and put in place through the university, not through DSA. And then the university can then also support students to have access to the teaching environment. So this might be through organising a disabled parking permit for a student who uses a car to travel to university. And then things like timetable adjustments as well. So that might be making sure that your department organise your timetable so that you've got enough time to move in between lectures during the day. So if it's going to take you a little bit longer to get from one lecture to the next, then the department need to make sure that you've got that time to transition between buildings. So the main kind of point for my presentation is really just to say that as well as applying for DSA, it's important that you also contact the disability service at your university so that they can set up the university support. Okay, so that's the end of my bit. So I'm now going to introduce Beth and Megan. So Beth is a Sheffield University maths student and she also works as a disability champion. And Megan is a Barnsley College student. So you're going to have some time to ask Beth and Megan some questions, but just to start with, Beth, can you start first and just say a little bit about your experience of applying for DSA and the support that you have in place?
Yeah, no problem. So I applied for DSA when I applied for my student loan before I got to uni. I'm now in third year, so I've had it it's doing me well. I'm getting through uni. And so I just wrote down some things. That's why I'm looking down at my paper. So I applied at the same time, and it was quite an easy process. I did the online version because it was quite simple. And obviously, so I've got an autism diagnosis and two mental health diagnosis. So I had already got that prior to applying anyway. So it was quite sort of a simple, I think I sent them the wrong thing at first, so I did get knocked back, but it was fine anyway. In terms of the meeting, obviously it sounds really scary because it says like, oh, it's an assessor. Everyone goes, oh, it's an assessor. Actually, it's really, really, I always say every time I do any sort of talk to sort of prospective students about it, I always say that when I got there, the guy that I spoke to knew what I needed before I knew I needed it. And I think that's like, so he was familiar with sort of what kind of needs that like autistic students have, or people with mental that have mental health difficulties. And so he was able to suggest things. And he also, I was able to I told him that I had worries about getting to and from uni because I live at home. So I'm one of the students that gets taxi to and from uni, although it's not been very useful, funnily enough, for the past year. But obviously I get lots of support, obviously, in terms of I've got my laptop, and I've also got specialist support that's paid for by DSA, because I have two support workers, that one for sort of mental health and then the other one for particularly my work. And they're specialists in autism, so they're from like an outside agency rather than provided through uni, so that's why they're paid for by them. So yeah, I also do math. Like I know Alison said, so I'm third year maths student, hoping to do a PhD as well. So like I'm staying at uni forever. That's
bless you. Yeah. Oh, thank you. And Megan, are you there to talk through you?
Yeah, so I was different. I actually applied for university, but then did the DSA process while I started, well, in the first few months of me being at Barnsley College, which, to be fair, the process was quite quick. I know other people have said that it's gone quite slow, even though after, obviously, I think I only waited 3 months from the date of me going to Jackie to me actually get my equipment. So it was quite a quick process for me. Personally, I've got dyslexia and a medical health issue. So I've got technology. I've got a new laptop at that moment in time. I've got all the assistive softwares. For my medical condition, I've got a table and a chair, and it's absolutely amazing, except for when people think it's hilarious to put it up and down. But other than that, I'm currently studying fine art, so I don't really need to worry about so much doing all the technical side of it, but it is there for when I need it.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got one question in the chat that is probably one of Jackie, Justine or Alison would probably be able to answer. Regarding the medical report, does a previous letter from Reigate providing an ADHD diagnosis work, or is there a need for a recent medical report?
I think it should be all right, but we always say it should be, because Student Finance England have they can sometimes not accept evidence, but it doesn't, for something like ADHD, it doesn't have to be within the last year or anything. If it's been done whilst you've been at Reigate, then that's probably going to be suitable, as long as it's from a medical professional or a psychological assessor. So I think you could ask a university to take a look at it and see what they say, or you could just send it off, and if it's not right, they'll ask you to get it updated. But I think in that case, it probably would be okay. Sometimes for medical evidence, they might kind of want something a bit newer, or a mental health condition, sometimes they want it a bit newer. But I think for that, in that case, I think it would be okay.
Lovely, thank you. So has anyone got any questions for the panel of people doing the presentations, but also for Megan and Beth, because they are current students, so they do know what it's like and you know, what support they get. Is there any questions that anyone's got? Right. Could a teacher of the deaf provide evidence for a deaf student, or would it have to be from medical audiology?
It would have to be medical professional, not a teacher of the deaf, unfortunately. Some universities might sort of accept some of the evidence, but for DSA it would have to be from a medical professional.
Lovely, thank you. There's a thank you in there as well in the chat. Is there any further questions? Come on, it's time to, this is your opportunity to get those questions out there. If you can't think of any at the moment, but you do come across some, we will be putting up in a minute a slide with contact details, and as I think Ruth's put in the chat, we will be sending out the slides and the recordings afterwards, so you have got that as backup to go back to, and it will have our contact details. But is there any further questions? Because Megan and Beth, bit more. I have evidence of the diagnosis for my physical condition, but it's years old. My condition hasn't changed. Would that still work as evidence?
If your condition is a chronic health issue, and if it's, for example, if it's from birth or if it's CP, then that would be acceptable, as long as it says on your evidence that this is a long-term health issue and was diagnosed in whatever year. I don't think there would be a problem with that.
Great, thank you. Oh, and Alistair's just put some information in the
yeah, so if you do need to request more recent evidence from a medical professional, then Student Finance England do have a medical evidence form that you can fill in, so that just makes it a little bit easier. So if you need to ask your GP for evidence, for example, then it makes it quite clear the information that the GP needs to include. So that's something that you could pass on to your practice and ask them to fill it in, so that you can then pass that on to Student Finance England, and you could use that for evidence to give to the disability service at the university as well.
Lovely, thank you, Alison. Any oh, and I think Anita's got a hand raised. You want to take yourself off mute?
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for all the information, especially the young girls who've given us an insight what it's like at university with a disability. I'm just wondering, I have paperwork for my son's autism from Reigate, but I don't have anything written down for his ADHD. So can I get a letter off the ADHD nurse at Reigate? Is that okay?
Yeah, should be, yeah.
Yeah, medical.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Anita. There's one more question. My son had a dyslexia assessment in year 8 and was found to have mild dyslexia. Would you pursue the assessment? It was a dyslexia portfolio test.
I'm not familiar with a dyslexia portfolio test. If that's more of a screening assessment rather than a full diagnostic assessment, then it would need to be a full diagnostic assessment for dyslexia. It used to be the case that you needed to have a post-16 assessment, which isn't the case. They will accept a pre-16 assessment now, but it does have to be a full diagnostic assessment which contains a clear diagnosis. So it just depends on whether the portfolio test is a screening or a full assessment.
If it was taken from by an educational psychologist and it's got the right tests in it, it will be accepted, but if it's not, it won't. But get in touch with whichever university your son has decided to have as his firm choice, because it might be that they offer dyslexia tests. I know at Sheffield Hallam we do, and at some universities offer part payment of the tests. So ask, send the what you've got, see if it's suitable, and if it's not, then get in touch with the university that your son is wanting to go to. I think send what evidence you've got off, if that's what you've got at the time, because they might accept it, but sort of be prepared that they might ask for more.
Okay, lovely. And then we've got another question. When is the best time to contact the university for their own support plan? I think they're going in September, is that right? I think that's what they've put.
I think all universities will be slightly different in this, so the timescales might be slightly different. I know at Sheffield Hallam, if you've disclosed your disability on UCAS, so when you applied for university, if you disclosed that you have a disability, then Sheffield Hallam, we will contact you from May onwards. So, and if you've not disclosed, then contact the university. Sheffield Hallam, we sort of work on May time.
Same for Barnsley College HE. I'm now sending out advice about applying for DSA, and then once a student has got into the process, I'll start to put together a support plan for them if we're a first choice.
Yeah. Lovely, thank you. And then there's I'm in year 12, do I apply next year?
So you'll be coming to university September 22. That would be right, wouldn't it? Yes. Oh no, it's 20. Yeah.
Yes, next year. Yes, because they're in year 12, they'll be year 13. Yes, that's right, year 13 in September. So it'll be
yeah. You have to apply on the form with the date for the September start. So the ones that have come out this year just say 21-22 from September. So you can't sort of get ahead and apply on this and hold it until next year. It has to have the right date on it.
Fantastic. And then one final question. Does Sheffield Hallam have orientation days for ASD students?
We do. How they're going to look this year, we're not sure yet, because that will depend on government guidelines. We did an online event last year, and we're planning on doing an online event this year for ASD students. Hopefully we can do an on-campus event as well, but that all depends on what the government tells us we're allowed to do. But there are, at Sheffield Hallam, we are doing some general sort of days as well. So just if you've disclosed and we know about, just keep checking your emails that you used, because we'll send out all the information out to there.
Lovely. That looks like we're pretty much there. I'm just going to put up the final screen for me. So thank you so much to everybody for attending today. There is these links on here is just for evaluation, obviously for us to improve, do better sessions. It would be really, really helpful if you wouldn't mind filling in these forms. They are through SurveyMonkey and they're very quick. I'm told sort of between 2 and 3 minutes to complete them. So there's different ones for the teachers and advisors that are on the call, and then the other ones for the students with their parents and carers if they would be happy to do that. I'll send these links round, but obviously these are them for now. I'll keep it up for another few seconds, and then we'll go to the final page, which is just to give you all our contact details. As I said, what we're going to do is we'll send out an email to everybody that's been on here today through the Eventbrite and send all the presentations. But I'd like to say thank you to our panel, obviously Alison from the University of Sheffield, Justine from Sheffield Hallam, and Jackie from Barnsley College, and our student ambassadors who have kindly taken up their time to come and talk to everybody here today about the support that they received and DSA, which is, is really amazing. So thank you, Beth and Megan, for that. So I'll just send you to the last page with our contact details. As I say, you are more than welcome to contact any one of us. These are our contact details. Obviously for HEP, that's our HEP website, which has got lots of resources for disabled students on there. So please do take a look and read about our resources that we've all been put together. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time, and have a good evening.